Wet and dark riding. I've recently invested in a cycling over jacket, which is a waterproof breathable jacket. One of those ones that lights up like a beacon when the car headlights catch the material. Mainly because I'm very aware that motorcycles aren't particularly visible in the dark. And the most visible that we can make ourselves is through what we're wearing. And as well as making sure that the lights are working and are clean on the bike, of course. The biggest consideration for me was how visible we are from a side angle. You imagine the lights on a motorcycle face front and rear. We're not particularly visible from the sides. So investing in some good kit, which does the job that you need it to do, so I need this to be waterproof and reflective, is a worthy investment in my mind. When we're riding in the dark, it can be easy to be distracted by dazzling headlights either coming towards us or in our mirrors. So try to set your mirrors up so you don't get dazzled, but obviously if there's poorly aligned headlights behind you, there's not much you can do about it. And if you have headlights coming towards you that are dazzling, then try not to look at them. Our instinct is to stare at something that's really bright. It can be quite difficult to see the road markings when it's dark and when it's wet, and also the road surface. So you do need to be wary, particularly in low light conditions where everything looks a little bit grey, in that it is quite difficult to see the road surface. Lots of people are frightened of riding in the wet, or more wary, because they think the road is slippery. When it's wet, the road isn't inherently slippery. It simply affords you slightly less grip than when it's dry. And there's a difference. Ice makes the road slippery, which means there's very little grip for your tyres because there's ice between the tyre and the tarmac. Rain makes the road wet, which affords you slightly less grip when you're slowing down, so you take a little bit longer and be a bit more smooth as you're doing a slowing down process, in order that you don't lose grip during those processes of slowing down, speeding up and changing direction. But the road itself isn't inherently slippery just because it's wet. You have slightly less grip because there is a layer of water between the tyres and the tarmac, and the tyres are likely to cool down quicker because of the water on them. So for bends, turns and roundabouts, I would be taking those a little slower than normal if it were a nice dry day. There are road surface issues which can make the roads more slippery when it's wet, and that's things like diesel or fuel spillages. And again, when it's dark, it's very difficult to see these because it's hard to see the road surface in advance of you actually getting onto the road surface. So you do need to be wary on your bends, turns and roundabouts when you're on a lean, in case there is a change in road surface that you can't see when it's dark or when it's wet. So when we're considering approaching green lights, I'm going to assume they're going to change, which they just have. So I'm going to ease off the throttle, start my braking early and gently. That's both brakes 50-50. Now I'm coming down to my rear brake, and I'm going to stay a good distance back from the van so that I can see his mirrors. The key to successful riding in the wet is being really smooth. So whether we're opening the throttle or closing the throttle, we're going to do it with a gentle roll of the hand. We're not going to treat it like an on-off switch and go for open or shut. Just do everything really gently and smoothly. Doesn't mean we do everything really slowly. It just means we're smoother, even smoother than normal. So gently moving off. That's gentle with the clutch as it comes through the bite point, and then gently opening the throttle once the clutch is through the bite point. Keeping a good eye on my mirrors because it is quite wet. I do want to know what's going on behind me, because if somebody's really close, I may need to start slowing down even earlier to allow for the fact that they're too close behind me. Looking for any large bodies of water on the road surface as well, in advance of getting onto them. But I'm not being afraid to accelerate, I'm just doing it smoothly. So I'm up to the speed limit. I've created a nice distance between me and the van, who has got one poorly aligned headlight behind. But I've done it smoothly and safely. Again, anticipate the lights changing. They may change, so think about what you're going to do well in advance when it's wet. Plan the point of no return. Well, that's the point where if the lights change, you will still keep going, because it wouldn't be safe for you to stop. Then in the wet, that distance is going to be a little bit further back than it would be in the dry. Once you've made that decision, unless it's not safe to proceed, you should be going through the lights when they change. So you're not hammering your brakes on and potentially losing grip as you're stopping, and you're also not causing the vehicles behind you to have to suddenly stop in the wet. Planning for the roundabout, I'm easing off my throttle gently with both brakes, down a gear, smooth with the clutch, smooth with the throttle, and looking all the way up the road as well as scanning the road surface and checking my mirrors. I'm back up to the speed limit already, nice and smooth. And even looking ahead now, the lights are red from this far back, which means it's likely they're going to change on the approach. So I'm going to begin to ease off just a little bit, get down into a responsive gear, not one that's going to spin up the tyres as I go to accelerate. And then I'm back on the power, and I'm back up to the speed limit without any issues, nice and safe and smooth. I think I rely quite a lot on my peripheral vision to judge my speed. When it's very dark without street lights, so in the countryside for example, it's quite difficult to judge how fast you're going, which means you can misjudge the speed that you need to slow down to for bends. So if you don't ride regularly in the dark, it's worth having that in mind when you are slowing down for bends or coming up to junctions. You need to be extra mindful of vehicles approaching from side roads when it's dark. Remember, you are less visible if you haven't got one of these very highly reflective jackets on. Again, both brakes, nice and gentle. Select the gear before the bend. Look all the way around the bend. I'm just checking out the road surface because there's quite often diesel spilt on that bend, so I'm taking it nice and steady. And I did dip the clutch as I came round and then reintroduce. That's not coasting, that's just taking the clutch away for a split second to help the line and to ensure that I don't run wide or gain too much speed as I'm coming around. And I try and avoid this big puddle, just in case there's a pothole beneath it or any other debris that I can't see that I don't want to run over. The car behind got quite close to me then, so I've just gently but positively used the power to get away. He's a good distance back now and he's not catching up at the moment. And I'm doing 32 in a 30 just to try and encourage him not to catch up with me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I won't get done for speeding. We allow for a little bit of speedo error. So as I was saying, side road, if you see cars approaching the side roads, you do need to be prepared for them not to see you in the dark. So as soon as you see a car approaching a side road, particularly from the left but also from the right, cover your horn and be prepared to take action if you need to, if you see the wheels of the car start to move. Do remember it's the wheels of the car that will move first, so they're the bit that you really want to be watching. And I plan early for the change of speed limit with a nice obvious mirror check, gently easing off the throttle. I don't really need to brake, but I'm going to use the brakes to let this car know that I'm going to be doing the speed limit. So activating the brake lights so that they understand I'm going to do the speed limit. Quite like this road because it is 20 and there's lots of speed humps, which means I'm now going to lose him because we can go round the speed humps. Ha ha. So we didn't really want to do the 20 as we came into it. Keeping a nice regular eye on my mirrors. And I'm not going to assume that just because I've got a reflective jacket on, people are actually looking for me and have seen me. So I still need to be very careful not to get into the blind spots of other vehicles or place myself somewhere where I'm less visible to them. Had to be a little bit aware then that I'd made the decision I was going to go, but the bus then blocked my view, and if there was a car racing down that road to the mini roundabout I wouldn't have seen it. So I made sure I double checked after the bus. So I'm keeping a good eye on my mirrors. I'm watching for anything from the sides of the road. See this car ahead, the brake lights have just gone off, which makes me think that car is either about to move off or commit a manoeuvre, or the driver may get out of the car, or somebody else might get out of the car. Use my brakes a little bit just so that the cars behind know I'm going to slow down for the bus. Let's stay a good distance back from the bus. Don't really want to get up the back side of it. I want him to know I'm here, and I want to be able to get around him quite easily if he stops. We're in a 20-mile-an-hour zone anyway, so there's no point getting up the back side of the bus trying to shimmy him along, but it's not going to happen. Even at this distance I feel like I'm too close to the bus because I can't see around the bus especially well. I don't like not seeing what's in front of me. I've now lost all my ability to forward plan apart from what happens with the bus. There's the other consideration that if we are too close behind it and there's somebody waiting at a side road, they may see the bus but they won't see us. And again, they're more likely to pull out once the bus has passed them. and then be suddenly surprised that we're there. Mirrors, easing off the throttle gently, a little bit of brakes, down a gear, and nice and smooth with the clutch when it comes back out. Steady with the throttle. Let's watch what the bus is up to, because he won't be able to see me now when I'm not in his mirrors. Bear in mind, when you're passing the back of a bus, sometimes there's that moment where you can't see either of their mirrors, and that might be the moment they've decided to move off. The visibility through the visor can be an issue when it's wet. The rain tends to sit on this visor, so I do tend to wipe it quite regularly. Obviously, if you do wipe it, you're probably scratching it, so it's less likely that the rain will bead off when you're at the higher speeds. You'll get minuscule scratches in there that will suck the rain in and hold it. But there's not much I can do about that, because I do a lot of slow speed riding. Never assume these people are going to be taking the exit you think they are. And now I'm at work. I hope that was useful. Let me know in the comments. See you next time.